What's up, everyone? Today we're going to tackle about the 1987 Constitution after the martial law. But before we proceed to tackle about the 1987 Constitution after martial law, let's first define what is a constitution. So, constitution is a set of fundamental principles, rules, and laws that outline how a country, organization, or group is governed. It establishes the framework for government operations, defines the powers and responsibilities of its branches like the executive, legislative, and judiciary, and sets out the rights and duties of its citizens or members. So, para siyang guidebook na doon nakalista kung, o ikaw, ito yung role mo, ikaw, ito yung role mo, ito yung dapat mong gawin, ito yung limitasyon mo, hindi ka dapat mag-overtake sa obligasyon ng iba, and so on. Para siyang guidebook. It tells how a certain group or a country is governed. Yeah.
The 1987 Constitution of the Philippines is the set of rules of running the country. It was made after the end of martial law and the removal of President Marcos during the People Power Revolution in 1986.
So, this 1987 Constitution after martial law was created to stop the abuse of power. As you can see naman, di ba, during sa martial law, grabe yung dictatorship or the leader is so powerful. That's why with the help of 1987 Constitution, it limits the power of certain leaders, though they have the authority, but their powers are limited or to be checked by the other, those who are in the positions. Yes, that's why the 1987 Constitution created. Now let's delve deeper pa kung ano bang meron sa 1987 Constitution after martial law.
Before it all happened, President Corazon Aquino's government had three options regarding the constitutions: revert to the 1935 Constitution, retain the 1973 Constitutions, and be granted the power of make reforms, start anew, and break from the vestiges of a disgraced dictatorship.
So this first revert to the 1935 Constitution. This was the old set of rules before the martial law. Before pa yung martial law o yung time ni Marcos, ito yung 1935 Constitution. So that was the first choice by President Corazon Aquino. Second was that to retain the 1973 Constitution and be granted power to make reforms. This was a set of rules during the Marcos rule, but meron silang phoenix na part, especially those unfair laws na parang nalilimutan yung power ng mga tao. So, second choice was either retain the 1973 Constitution and just to fix some parts. And the third option was to start anew and break the vestiges of a disgraced dictatorship. So when we say vestiges, it's about traces, marks, or visible signs left by something that has vanished or has been lost. Para siyang yung mga remnants ng mga dating nawala. Remnants of something that has disappeared. So the meaning of this part was mag-start na ng bagong rule, mag-start ng bagong constitution. It's fresh. So that wala na yung mga remnants ng dictatorship or move away from the problems of dictatorship. Simple as that.
In March 1986, President Aquino proclaimed a transitional constitution to last for a year, while a constitutional commission drafted a permanent constitution. This transitional constitution, called the Freedom Constitution, maintained many provisions of the old one, including in written form the presidential right to rule by decree.
So, before tayo nag-proceed sa permanent constitution or the constitution that we have right now, meron tayong tinatawag na transitional constitution. So, just like when you edit a video, like before first clip, tapos lalagay yung transition then next clip. So, ganyan, transitional constitution. So, in Philippine context, before tayo nag-proceed sa constitution na we have right now, meron tayong tinatawag na transitional constitution or could be called the freedom constitution. And this constitution na ito ay it maintain many provisions by the old one. And while this is happening, well, actually, this transitional constitution lasts for a year. So, habang nangyari itong transitional constitution, itong constitutional commission, they're drafting the permanent constitution. So, habang nandito pa tayo sa transitional constitution, sila gumagawa ng permanent constitution so that by the time na natapos na yung transitional constitution or natapos na to, we can present here na sa permanent that we have right now. So, yun nga, meron tayong transitional constitution or the freedom constitution. Yep.
In 1986, a constitutional convention was created composed of 48 members appointed by President Aquino from varied backgrounds and representations. The convention drew up a permanent constitution, largely restoring the setup abolished by Marcos in 1972, but with new ways to keep the president in check, a reaction to the experience of Marcos' rule. The new constitution was officially adopted on February 2, 1897.
So in 1986, President Aquino form a constitutional commission which composed of 48 members. Ano nga ba uli yung constitutional commission? Again, just like yung groupings, tapos may 48 members, tapos sasabihin mo sila, oy, gawa kayo ng permanent na constitution na gagamitin natin. Tapos yung permanent constitution na ito, it really highlights the fairness and the previous democratic system, or yung people have rights to speak, people have rights, people can speak, people can have a power. The previous democratic system, which was previously abolished by the Marcos rule during the 1972. And so, yung bagong permanent na constitution na ito na dinadraft nila, it also now checks or limits the power of a certain leader para yung leader na hindi na masyadong maging powerful again that can cause dictatorship and so on. So yun nga yung permanent constitution na dinadraft nila. It was adopted in February 2, 1987. And so what we use right now,
The Constitution begins with a preamble and 18 self-contained articles. It established the Philippines as a democratic republican state where sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. It allocates governmental powers among the executive, legislative, and judicial branches of the government.
so now we're going to tackle about the three governmental branches under the 1987 Constitution after the martial law. So, please say, bakit ba kasi merong three governmental branches kung pwede lang na may isa? Kasi if one can become too powerful and might cause the dictatorship again. That's why we have three. To share the power, to balance the power, so that one can become too powerful that kaya nilang i-oppose tong isa, and so on. And now we're going to tackle about that. First, we have this.
The executive branch is headed by the President and his cabinet whom he appoints. The President is the head of the state and the chief executive, but his power is limited by significant check from the two other co-equal branches of government, especially during times of emergency.
When we say the executive branch, that's the branch who enforces the laws. Sila yung nag-make sure na pina-follow ng mga tayong mga laws. Sila yung nagpupush na ipa-follow yung law na in-implement. So, in the executive branch, nandyan yung president natin o yung president of our country. And with the advisors called the cabinets. Yan yung kasama ng president, yung mga kabinete. Pero si president yung nag-appoint sa mga kabinete or the cabinets. So, even though, like, president is also the president of the nation state, but he is also the chief executive, especially sa pag-enforce ng mga law. So, he's the nation state president. At the same time, is also the chief executive, the one who enforces the law. So, kahit nga mayroong authority yung president, may siyang power, but sometimes limited. It's like hindi siya basta-basta maka-decide, especially in times of emergency. So, just like for instance, the president wants to decide to make a decision or a program. So, to other branches, I want to make a decision. Itong sila judicial branch and legislative branch, i-check din nila yung dinidecide na executive branch o yung president. Okay, i-check muna namin. Okay, pwede mong gawin yan. Okay, sige, gawin. Ganun. Yeah.
In case of national emergency, the President may still declare martial law but not longer than a period of 60 days. Congress, through a majority vote, can revoke this decision or extend it for a period that they determine. The Supreme Court may also review the declaration of martial law and decide if there were sufficient justifying facts for the act.
So, in case of national emergency, yung presidente, pwede siyang mag-declare ng martial law. But, not longer than 60 days. Unlike nung time ni Marcos, whose martial law ay naglast for about 14 years. So, with this new constitution, yung president can declare martial law but not longer than 60 days. And the Congress can revoke this decision through majority vote, and Supreme Court could also check whether that martial law is factual, allowed, or is it fine, reasonable ba siya, and so on.
The President and Vice President are elected at large by direct votes, serving a single 6-year term.
The legislative power resides in a Congress divided into two houses, the Senate and the House of Representatives.
When we say legislative branch, it is the branch who makes the laws. Sila yung gumagawa ng mga law. And this branch is composed of two, the Senate and the House of Representatives. The Senate is the higher one. They represent the whole country. It composed of 24 members and can run for about 6 years. So the role of this Senate is that they can decline, they can approve the laws made by the House of Representatives. They could also create a law, and they could also check the treaties or appointments made by the President. Next is the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives composed of 316 members. Some of its members are from the votes from the different districts, like binoboto ng mga tao sa iba't ibang distrito. And some members of House of Representatives are from the party list system, yung mga party list na nagrepresenta sa isang grupo, like fight for labor, market, gender, and so on. So, the role of House Representative is that they propose a law, and this law usually focuses on the needs of the Filipinos, such as the labor and so on. So, these two must work together to ensure that the laws are checked, verified, and so on. That's it for the legislative branch.
The 24 senators are elected at large by popular vote and can serve no more than 2 consecutive 6-year terms. The House is composed of district representatives representing a particular geographic area and makes up around 80% of the total number of representatives. There are 234 legislative districts in the Philippines that elect their representatives to serve 3-year terms. The 1987 Constitution created a party-less system to provide spaces for the participation of underrepresented community sectors or groups. Party-less representatives may fill up not more than 20% of the seats in the House.
So we all know that the senators here in Philippines, or there are 24 senators here in Philippines that runs for a 6-year term or no more than 2 consecutive 6-year term. While in House of Representative kasi, they run for about 3 years. Yung House of Representative, that's the congressman and congresswoman sa city natin. So, di ba yung House of Representative composed of 316 members? 80% of the House of Representatives came from the votes of the 234 legislative districts. When we say legislative districts, ito yung mga district na nagvo-vote ng mga congressmen and congresswomen. So, 80% of the members sa House of Representatives are from the votes of legislative districts. The 20% belong to the party list system or the party list vote. This party list is sila yung mga grupo na nagfa-fight of those underrepresented groups in the community. So 80% of the House of Representatives came from the legislative districts, 20% came from the party list system, and so on.
Aside from the exclusive power of legislation, Congress may also declare war through a two-thirds vote in both upper and lower houses. The power of legislation, however, is also subject to an executive check, as the President retains the power to veto or stop a bill from becoming a law. Congress may only override this power with a two-thirds vote in both houses.
So, Congress can also declare a war through two-thirds votes, the vote from the Senate and the vote from the House of Representatives. So, aside from that is that, the Congress, when they pass a bill to the President, o may ginawa silang bill, may propose kami ditong, bill, tas pasa muna natin to kay President, tas wait for his approval whether he want that to make that bill into a law. Again, when we say a bill, it's a proposal to make something into a law. Like, magpo-propose ka na, please make that thing na magsusot ng uniform, dapat gawin yung law. That's the bill, like proposal. When say law, yan yung established na yan. So, when the Congress pass a bill to the President and wait for their approval to it become a law, and when the President vetoes it, when you say veto, i-decline ng President, so mababalik yun sa Congress. But the Congress can still make that bill into a law. But, ano bang requirement para yung bill na dinecline ng President to become a law ay pwede pa rin maging law with the use of the Congress? Well, it must have the two-third votes. The votes from the Senate and the vote from the House of Representatives. So, even though ayaw ng Presidente na gawin yung bill ay gawin niyang law, the Congress can still turn that bill into a law with the two-third votes. Ching!
The Philippine court system is vested with the power of the judiciary and is composed of a Supreme Court and lower court as created by law. The Supreme Court is made up of 15 members called justices, and they are appointed by the President. Congress does not need to approve their appointments. The Supreme Court hears important cases such as cases that question whether a law, treaty, or government rule follows the Constitution. Cases that involve mistakes in legal decisions or problems with how laws are applied. Cases with very serious penalties. The Supreme Court can also handle cases directly if they involve government officials or international issues. The Supreme Court supervises how the lower courts operate and ensures they follow the law properly.
When we say the judicial branch, it is the branch that interprets the laws and decide whether they are constitutional, whether that law is applicable ba dyan, bagay ba sa tao na yan. And also, again, the judicial branch, they handle cases or mga kaso. So, chine-check pa nila yung mga law na applicable ba dyan, bagay ba sa kanya yung law na yan, or simply they interpret the law whether it is justifiable to a certain person. And this judicial branch has two. First is the Supreme Court and next is the lower court. The Supreme Court, it has fewer members and the judge there are called justices. Sila yung nag-handle ng mga serious matters here in the Philippines, especially nag-include ng mga high-ranking officials or those mga crimes or cases that are very grave, very severe penalties. Example of this is the Estrada versus People. It is the time where Supreme Court had to decide whether to remove Estrada, to remove legally on his position. Yeah, that is the Supreme Court or Supreme. When we say lower court, they handle day-to-day cases or mga common cases like conflicts, personal matters sa family. And this lower courts has many judges. Basta, mga common cases in our country. And that is the two types of the judicial or the two parts of the judicial branch, the Supreme Court and the lower court.
The Constitution also established three independent constitutional commissions, namely Civil Service Commission, a central agency in charge of government personnel, Commission on Elections, mandated to enforce and administer all election laws and regulations, Commission on Audit, which examines all funds, transactions, and properly accounts of the government and its agencies.
When we say Civil Service Commission or the CSC, they're the one who is in charge of the governmental personnel, the hiring, the promotion, to ensure that they ensure that the government, even the personnel, runs smoothly and walang mangyaring disputes and so on. Next is the Commissions of Elections or the COMELEC. Well, naririnig natin yan. They are the one who organize the election, the registration, the votings, the counting, to ensure the free and fair and the smooth flow of the elections. Sila yung assigned dyan. And when we say the Commission on Audit or the COA, they check the transparency, saan ba napupunta yung mga funds, ano bang ginagamit sa mga funds, magkano ba yung budget. Basta transparency about the funds doon chine-check. Para siyang resibo, diba? Ganon. So that's the CSC, COMELEC, and the COA.
To further promote the ethical and lawful conduct of the government, the Office of the Ombudsman was created to investigate complaints that pertain to public corruption, unlawful behavior of public officials, and other public misconduct.
So the Office of the Ombudsman, just like in our barangay, kapag may complaint tayo about sa nangyari sa kapaligiran natin, doon tayo sa barangay, ay si nandun, parang ginagawa siya doon. Doon sa government, kasi sa mga high-ranking officials, meron siyang tinatawag na Office of the Ombudsman. That's where the people will complain or other officials will complain, report, or ask for investigation about a certain government officials about his wrongdoing or feeling nila, uy, parang may mga ginagawa tong mali isang official na to. I-report ko to sa Office of the Ombudsman para imbestigahan nila kung totoo ba tong kutob ko, kung may ginagawa ba talaga silang masama. Ganun. So, Office of the Ombudsman, doon kayo magre-report, doon kayo magko-complain, doon kayo mag-ask investigation. And if evidences are found and proven na yung government official na yan is corrupt, is masama, may ginawang mali. And that's where prosecution will happen to that certain person and so on. So kasi ito kasing Office of the Ombudsman, make sure na walang corrupt, walang abuse of power na mangyari. Just the government official will really do their job to make sure that they really do their job and so on.
Only the House of Representatives can initiate the impeachment on the high-ranking officials such as President, members of the Supreme Court, and other constitutionally protected public officials such as the Ombudsman. The Senate will then try the impeachment case. This is another safeguard to promote moral and ethical conduct in the government.
So only the House of Representatives can have the power to start the processing of impeachment of the high-ranking officials. First, when we say impeachment, it is the legal removal of the public officials due to their wrongdoings or misconduct. And we say those high-ranking officials, this includes the president, the vice president, the government officials, the member of the ombudsman, and so on. So only the House of Representatives can start that impeachment or the filing of impeachment case to the high-ranking officials. And this case or filing can be passed on the Senate. So in the Senate, doon na nila iaano yung trial whether that certain public official should be removed or not, and so on. Bakit nga ba to kinakandak? This is to ensure that the government officials follow the law. It serves as the way to na parang serves as a lesson that you public officials should follow the rules that the people of the Philippines trusted you, meaning you have a duty to follow this, and if you don't, then you'll face this impeachment. So ganun, simple as that. Some important parts of the 1987 Constitution are: first, bring back the three parts of government, executive, legislative, and judicial, to share power. Second, protecting people's rights like freedom to speak, choose a religion, and share ideas. Third is that ensure fair elections to choose leaders. Fourth is that it prevents the abuse of power. Fifth is making it harder to declare martial law without a good reason. And that's it.